Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest is economist Jeffrey Sachs. Professor Sachs, welcome and thank you so much for joining me.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
So I want to start with Russia and Ukraine. I feel like it's kind of slid under the radar a little bit because I've been discussing Gaza so much, but there are recent developments that have come about. Donald Trump is now saying that he will try to get back territory for Ukraine. This is really strange considering there was that conversation between Trump and Zelensky in the White House not too long after Trump took office. And Donald Trump told him that he had no cards to play here. And he had also mentioned that Crimea belongs to Russia. Now he's saying the exact opposite. Now we see that Donald Trump is trying to get some territory for Ukraine. How likely is it that this is going to happen? I just don't see Vladimir Putin caving to this type of pressure.
I think you're completely right. You know, Donald Trump says a lot of things. They're not very consistent. They change by the hour. And Russia is winning on the battlefield. And it's stated its positions quite clearly about the territorial issues, the neutrality of Ukraine, the end of NATO enlargement. Well, not everything that the Russians have said will come to pass in an agreement. They do constitute the core of what will be agreed. Trump, fancies himself as a deal maker, so he puts pressure on, he makes threats, he does bluffs, he changes his mind, he says how much he likes the person, then how he is disappointed by the person, then threatens the person. This is standard behavior. We see it every day on almost every issue. But the fact of the matter is, if you look beneath the surface, you can see the contours of what the U.S. should agree with Russia. First, that the U.S. should stop arming Ukraine over a useless and destructive war, that Ukraine should be neutral, that this NATO business, this enlargement of NATO, never should have happened, never should have been threatened, never should have been a provocation. And yes, that there will be some territorial exchange as a result of this, which also has a long and detailed history. For example, the two provinces of eastern Ukraine, called the Donbass, were subject to a treaty in 2015 called the Minsk II Agreement, where Russia and those provinces said, look, they will stay within Ukraine, but Ukraine should give them political rights because these are Russian-speaking regions. And the United States and Ukraine said, no, we're not going to do that, even though they signed the agreement. So from the Russian side, they just see a lot of tricks, a lot of U.S. duplicity, actually. We don't hear too much about that in our media. But the U.S. once upon a time in 1990 told the Russians NATO won't even enlarge at all eastward. Then they cheated on that. The United States signed with the Soviet Union the anti-ballistic missile treaty. Then the United States left that. Then the United States pushed NATO to enlarge to Ukraine over strident Russian objections. Then the United States helped to overthrow a government in Ukraine in 2014. Russia didn't like that very much. Then the United States said, oh, you don't have to honor this Minsk II agreement. Russia didn't much like that. Then Russia and Ukraine came close to signing a peace agreement in April 2022, and the United States under Biden said, no, don't sign it. All right, so this is a little tiresome, you know? The Russians aren't just feeling in a great mood. They didn't fight this war out of their desire. They fought it after provocation came their way. And that's not being an apologist for Russia. That's just trying to explain why the war came and how it needs to end.
I totally hear you. I think it's important that people understand the history. I think more people are waking up to it than at the beginning of this war. I notice I'm seeing less Ukrainian flags that I saw at the beginning of the war, and more Americans are frustrated and they're saying that they don't want these wars, and they definitely don't want these forever wars, and they don't want US dollars going towards these wars
There you
abroad
go.
either. That's a big part of it, right? Like
There you
making that
go.
connection. But I wondered this as well. How likely is it, because Donald Trump made this promise? I mean, how likely is it that he ends this war with Russia and Ukraine? And should Vladimir Putin trust the United States at this point?
Well, if there's a very public agreement on principles, and it's signed by Russia and the United States, it can be trusted. What's happened up until now is that things aren't put on paper or statements are made. But if things are made very clear, then I think it's possible. And especially, things should be made clear. They should also be supported by the rest of the UN Security Council. Everyone should understand this war needs to end. You get the whole kind of world community through the UN saying, yeah, okay, these terms, this is the basis of it. If someone cheats, we're going to know which one did it. Not he said, he said, he said, but rather put it clearly. Of course, that takes some skill. You need diplomats. You can't just do it on True Social. You can't just say, I'm threatening you. You must do this in 24 hours. I give you 10 days. I punish you if you don't do this. I'm disappointed. You're a bad person. This is not how to run a government. Sorry. We need diplomats. We need negotiated documents. We need the public understanding. Trump, a normal president, frankly, would give a speech to the American people explaining the context, the history. This is how you actually solve problems. It takes a little bit more care than a True Social post. I don't know if we're going to get more than that, but that's what it needs.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that what was really interesting to me, I saw a speech that you gave not too long ago at the European Parliament,
Yes.
and very gutsy speech. And I just remember the looks on some of their faces. They were just like, what is he telling? What is he saying here? But you were advocating for peace, and you were telling them, we need to end it. We need to stop it. Like, don't send any more weapons,
Yeah.
etc. What was the reception like in the room after that speech? Like, did any of the European politicians, did any of them approach you, or how did that go afterwards?
Well, I told them instead of all this war, why don't you pick up the phone and call the Russian counterparts? Actually, maybe even fly to Moscow or have them fly to Brussels or Rome or some other place. And that room was a little bit self-selected, meaning they knew that I was speaking and they chose to come there. So I wasn't imposed on them. So there were a lot of friendly faces in that room, but it circulated widely in Brussels afterwards. And there were others that were not so happy with what I said because I told them, you're not doing your job. What is all the Russia hate? Okay, that's not going to get you security. That's not going to get you peace. The way to get peace is to talk to the other side. At least try. They don't even try. Until today, by the way. That's how ineffective I was. They still don't pick up the phone. And then they complain, America's negotiating without us. And I tell them, you don't have to wait for the United States to make a phone call, for God's sake. You pick up the phone. You go meet. They don't do that yet. It's really weird, actually. Weird is the only word I can give, a precise account of this. They're afraid. They don't have their own self-confidence. They are so used to depending on the United States. They believe their own rhetoric. I don't know what it is completely. But what they should do is open diplomacy with Russia and discuss these issues.
And speaking of talking to the other side, I remember when Tucker Carlson went to Moscow to interview Vladimir Putin, there was a lot of backlash from corporate media, including from some of his counterparts, former counterparts at Fox News. People did not want this conversation to happen. And my big thing is this. Why is it that Zelensky is interviewed multiple times on corporate media? We always get his side of the story. It is very odd to me that nobody is interviewing Vladimir Putin. I think it's done on purpose. They don't want you to hear his side of the story. And I think that interview that Tucker Carlson did, it really woke a lot of people up. Like, whoa, we didn't hear this before.
Yep.
And it's shameful, I think, when I look at media, as someone in independent media, when I look at corporate media, it's shameful to me that you would only get one side of the story about a war that's been going on for over 2 years.
Actually, I say that the war has been going on for 11 years because I put the date to February 2014 when this started. It was at a lower level, but thousands of people were killed between 2014 and 2022. So I think that this has been going on for quite a while. I think Tucker did a great job making this interview. It was a very interesting interview in addition. But we have a bad idea that you don't talk to the other side. But this is really wrong. If you don't talk to the other side, of course, it's a little bit easier if you want to spin propaganda, but it's not a way to make peace or to settle issues or to understand the other side. We attribute motives to the other side that are just wrong. This is my own experience. I talk with the Russians, I talk with the Chinese, I talk all over the world, and I hear both sides or the multiple sides of an argument, and it's very helpful to understand because different perspectives are quite real. They're not just put out there for spin. People have different views of things, and we need to relearn the idea of diplomacy. And with diplomacy, part of the idea is you actually listen to the other side, not making faces and saying, you're an idiot, you're a liar, how dare you, but actually listen and then respond, and they have to listen, and then you respond. It's pretty basic, but we teach our kids that, but we don't necessarily see that in our presidents. But
This
anyway,
is
they're going to meet now, so maybe something good will happen. So I don't want to prejudge, but I don't think that you can solve this on Truth Social.
I don't think so either. And also, when it comes to the other side, if we can pivot to economics for just a second, the tariffs, which I did try to warn people about when Trump re-entered the White House at the beginning of this year, that would impact us here in the United States as well. I don't know if this is Donald Trump trying to make some macho man move or whatever. But at this point, if I'm just looking at the data, China is soaring. They are rising. I don't think we can fault them for that. I just see them, that is a competitor. And it's interesting, a number of people who support free market and capitalism, they don't support that though.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
like,
very good. I've been going to China since 1981, so that's 44 years. And it went from a impoverished country to a booming country. And they worked hard on this, by the way. You could physically see with your own eyes how hard they were working, because sometimes I'd go to a place, I'd be driven to a place late at night, and the construction would be going on these buildings by torchlight, almost in the middle of the night. In other words, they were building their country 24 hours around the clock for years, and they had a great success. And we shouldn't denigrate them for that. By the way, trading with China's been very good for most Americans, not for every American. If you're in a line of business where China's very successfully exporting the products you make at a lower price, you'll get hurt. If you're a consumer of those goods, you're benefited. The basic idea of trade is not that every single person benefits, but that we have a society in which we use taxes and training programs and education and public investment to make sure that net everybody comes out ahead. But we don't do that. We just say, if someone's hurting in our country, first of all, our politicians are so bad. They don't take any care about people that are hurting. But what they do say is, oh, China did that. So they try to blame it on others without taking any responsibility themselves for doing the basic things that would make life better for Americans. So the whole name of the game is blame it on foreigners, blame it on others, don't take responsibility for fixing things in our own country. That's the big problem.
Yeah, and even when it comes to the tariffs, I'm seeing more and more President Lula and BRICS in general proposing this idea of moving away from the U.S. dollar. And I just don't see the U.S. as a part of a multipolar world. I feel like we're becoming more and more isolationist. I feel like BRICS is growing and it's getting to the point where people just don't want to work with us. And what I've tried to tell like my viewers is that the West we're small when you compare us to the population in India, you compare us to the population in China, the rest of the world. Like we're not as big as we think we are.
Oh,
And
bravo. You got it exactly right. And we can put some numbers on it. The United States is 335 million people. European Union is 450 million people. So you add it together, that's 800 million people. The world's 8 billion people. So if you take the US and Europe, we're one tenth of the world population. If you add in, other friends, so add in Canada, Britain, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the ones that we call the US alliance, it comes to 12% of the world population. Maybe if you take a big expanded list, 15%. What about the other 85% of the world? Just India and China by themselves is nearly 40%. And so I say exactly what you're saying, which is, oh, we think we're so big, powerful. Trump thinks I can make demands of anybody. And the rest of the world saying, who is this guy? Yeah, we don't want to cross the U.S. We'd like to have normal relations, but get us to bow down? No, thank you. Get us to make agreements that are not in our interest? No, thank you. And the president of Brazil, who I adore, President Lula, said the most clear, explicit thing. He said, we don't need an emperor. So he said, look, we want to have normal relations with the U.S., but we don't need Emperor Donald. We don't need an American empire. Don't make demands, and we can have normal relations.
what are we doing wrong in this country economically? If you were compare us to China, what are we doing wrong? Is it our infrastructure? Is it the job market? What do we do?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I travel a lot, and because countries that were poor 20 years ago have been built up tremendously fast in the last 20 or 25 years. So if you go to an airport elsewhere, you say, whoa, this is dazzling. If you come back to our airports, well, they're being rehabbed a bit, but you feel like you're back in the 1950s. My wife and I joke that we know we're back in America because the elevator doesn't work, the walkway doesn't work, staircase doesn't work, people are yelling at you. So we need to invest. This is how you get ahead. We need to spend money on not war, but on modernizing our country. And we haven't done that. We have spent $7 trillion on wars since 2001, basically. We went to war after war after war after war. It's terrible. What a waste. We gave huge tax cuts to people who have so much money that they don't know what to do with it. And then we say, oh, there's no money in the budget for modernization or for protecting the environment or for taking care of nature. So we're making a lot of bad choices. We just had one big ugly bill called One Big Beautiful Bill. What was the point of this thing? First, it was a backroom operation, never debated, never discussed, filled with the hidden gifts to the rich that I don't even know about because, you only learn about these things in some page and hundreds of pages into a document way late. But it was a secret operation. The main point of the operation was tax cuts for the rich. And the main way to not balance the tax cuts because they didn't even come close. This is a gusher of more red ink. But the main response was cut the health care of America's poorest people. Duh. Could this possibly be fair? Would we ever, in an open day, if we had a real discussion and things were really debated and deliberated by the American people, would we ever come to this? If we had a room of 1,000 Americans randomly selected, not paid for by lobbyists, but put into a room from all over the country and told, you can deliberate about the future of the United States. You can get any data you want. You can ask anybody you want their opinions. But in the end, you vote. Would they ever, ever in a million years vote the one big beautiful bill? No, nothing like it. They would say, Elon, pay some taxes. Come on, you have $300 billion. Pay some taxes. They would say that to Bezos. They would say that to others high on the list. You add the top 18 or so billionaires, they've got something like 3 trillion of wealth. Pay some taxes so that the elevators work and the walkways work and it's not just a broken down mess outside our homes.
And the bridges aren't falling apart.
And the
That's
bridges
another
aren't
one.
falling apart exactly.
Another one that people are dealing with. One of the things I wanted to pick your brain about is this idea of peace, because Kim McCarthy came onto the show a while back. He wrote a book about how JFK wanted to basically, I guess, hold Israel accountable with when it came to nuclear weapons. And JFK wanted peace, wanted to move away from these wars. And some would argue that that's why JFK was assassinated, that that's why he's no longer here. This is the fear I think that some people have. Some people feel as though if they're a presidential candidate and they run on this anti-war message, that they too will be JFK'd, right? And to that point, I have to say that I think you just have to be fierce and you have to push back against like those powers out there. But I think that what is starting to happen, and I'm noticing it from voters as well, they're like, well, of course, well, Trump's going to say this because he wants to play their game. People said the same thing in 2024 when Kamala Harris was running. They said, well, she has to say that because she's got to pretend to play their game. But then I look at the money that is attached to the political candidates, like money from AIPAC, money from Kufi, and it's just, I don't think they're not just playing a game. They bought into this system, and that's how they were allowed to go as far as they did. And I wonder if JFK would have lived, if he wasn't assassinated, does Israel get as far as it does? Does it get to this point where it's a tiny place, but it has so much power when it comes to U.S. Politics and what has happened to the Palestinian people? Does it get to that point if JFK lives?
Well, let me say, first of all, I also wrote a book about President Kennedy's peace efforts. It's called To Move the World, JFK's Quest for Peace. It's actually a book about the last year of his life, from the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis to the signing of a peace agreement with the Soviet Union called the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. And Kennedy was the most gifted statesman in that year of any president that we've had in modern times. I think Franklin Roosevelt was our greatest president. Kennedy was the only one in my lifetime that I would say reached greatness. And on the question, was he killed for his peace efforts? I think there's a good argument for it. Of course, there are things that are not known, but the things that become more and more known suggest that this was a CIA action, at least an action in which James Angleton, who was the head of counterespionage of the CIA, played an active role. And one of the things Kennedy said at one moment was that he wanted to take the CIA and tear it up into 1,000 pieces. And maybe they went and got him as a result of that. So Kennedy was a great peacemaker. He gave a speech on June 10, 1963. It's known in history as the peace speech. It's online. People can listen to it. It's just mesmerizing. My poor family, I made them listen probably 50 times as I was writing my book. So they all heard it again and again and again. Now, the role of Israel in all of this is highly controversial. What we can say is Angleton, who clearly had some relationship, perhaps the mastermind or the one who used Lee Harvey Oswald, because Oswald papers were in Angleton's safe, and Angleton lied about the relationship throughout his whole life. Angleton had close relations with Mossad. This is for sure true. And so that link exists. But there are many other links also. There's the Cuba link, the anti-Castro Cubans who definitely at some low level were engaged in this conspiracy, or I don't say definitely, but I think very highly likely. There was the mob, which was involved as well. So there's a lot that isn't sure, but Kennedy resisted Israel's attempt to get atomic weapons. This is for sure. And the Israelis were very unhappy about that, and they were determined to get atomic weapons. And it seems very likely that James Angleton played a role with Mossad in facilitating Israel getting atomic weapons. So there are all sorts of things that need to be better understood. What I would say is, though, Kennedy had a lot of enemies among the war party, whether it was Vietnam, whether it was Cuba, uh, perhaps Israel, but he had a lot of enemies, and I think it was a conspiracy to kill him. And I think what you said is also true, and some historians have said, ever since Kennedy's assassination, no president has been an independent actor because they're all scared. And you know, what motivates Trump? Do the Epstein files motivate Trump? It's quite possible. That's not some crazy idea. Uh, there's, I would say, overwhelming evidence that Epstein was a Mossad asset, and that all the stuff with Epstein had Israel blackmail around it. Uh, what's Epstein doing meeting repeatedly with Israeli leaders during this period? And you watch the behavior of the political class, including Trump. They don't say a word that's honest about this stuff. So, you have enough reason to say, whoa, something weird is really going on there.
And how was Epstein able to get a job as a college professor, and said that he graduated from Harvard? The Harvard alumni circle is, I
Yeah.
mean, people know if you went to Harvard.
Yeah. No, and he was deeply involved in MIT. There was so many weird things that make sense if you put it into the context of a Mossad operation, and I think it most likely was.
Even when we look at someone like RFK, who, based on what I've read and the videos that I've watched, it seems like RFK probably would have won if he wasn't killed. And it seemed like he really found a way to energize the young people, the anti-war movement, and then he also was assassinated. And a lot of times people go back to JFK and RFK because they look at them and they feel like that seems like that was the last time.
Yeah, RFK, I was 14 at the time. RFK was the great first political love of my life. Of course, I knew President Kennedy, but I was much younger. But RFK, that was the campaign, and he stirred people, and he inspired, and he was going to be president. And certainly people knew that he was going to go after the secrets of the assassination. And that's definitely one motivation. And there are so many things wrong with the conventional narrative that Sirhan by himself committed this crime, including the fact that the chief coroner rejected that conclusion, saying that it was the forensic evidence runs completely against it. Sirhan was in the front, but Kennedy was shot behind the right ear, and the shots came from a different direction. And a lot of eyewitnesses saw multiple people with guns, and were so many things wrong with the LAPD investigation, so-called, and so many links with the CIA that seems to have shut down the investigation, that you're just led to absolute despair over this. Of course, it was 4 people who were systematically killed in this period, the 2 Kennedys, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And that was snuffing out the chance for a new America in the 1960s, no doubt about it.
Why do you think RFK Jr. Has the position that he has on Israel? When he first announced that he was running, there were more people that were in favor of a lot of the things he was talking about. He was talking about the CIA, how it was a problem, et cetera. And as time went by, then October 7th happened, and people saw his position on Israel, and a lot of us were like, "Whoa, what is wrong with this guy?" Like, it was really weird to me. Do you feel that RFK Jr. Is it because he was on Epstein's jet as well, which he has acknowledged? Doesn't mean he did anything on that island. Do you feel like they tried to blackmail him? Well, why does he have that staunch position on Israel?
I don't know. I asked him the same question. I did not get a satisfactory answer. We're friends. We're classmates. We've known each other for a half century. So I like Bobby a lot, but I don't agree with him on this issue, of course.
Yeah, that was one we scratched our heads about. And when it comes to Gaza, what is the future for Gaza in your opinion? Right now, Donald Trump, I just don't believe any of this anymore, is announcing that, oh, we have a ceasefire agreement coming forward and things are going to work out great for the Palestinian people. And I envision that they're going to continue killing them, or they're going to make them leave regardless. I see it as ethnic cleansing. I don't know how Israel gets away with this in the world's view. Like, the world is turned against Israel.
Yes,
The
that's
numbers
correct.
show that as well. I just don't understand, like, what is the future for the Palestinian people after this?
I wrote an open letter to Israel's foreign minister, which I posted yesterday, which if people are interested, they can find on Common Dreams. I sat behind the foreign minister at the UN Security Council last week, and I was really, really taken aback by the words of the foreign minister. I found them outrageous, uh, especially since this man was representing a government that is systematically starving 2 million people, many of them dying now of their starvation. So you could find a detailed account of my views. The basic view is that in a not a hidden way, the government of Israel says that they're going to control all of Palestine. They're not going to leave the occupied territories. Now, there are 3 occupied territories of Palestine, meaning territories that were captured in the 1967 war. If you go back to the borders before that war, the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, you have Gaza, you have the West Bank, and you have East Jerusalem. There are about roughly 6 million Palestinian Arabs living in those 3 areas, and another 2 million living in Israel itself. Under international law, Israel is illegally occupying Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. It should leave, and those three places should become a state of Palestine. That's the so-called two-state solution. It would work. It would be peaceful. It would be a solution. It's supported by more than 180 countries in the world. So what stops it? Of course, Israel stops it first because Israel says, no, we are going to control everything. Second, it's the United States. The U.S. is the only major country in the world that supports Israel's extremism. Not just supports it, funds it, and arms it. So this is a joint U.S.-Israeli genocide that's underway right now. The U.S. is actively complicit in this. The American people are against this. The latest Gallup survey showed about 70% of Americans, 60% of Americans siding with Palestine and about 30% approving of Israel. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. But American foreign policy is not made by the American people. It's made by lobbyists. It's made by military contractors. It's made by money. It's made by insider interests. It's made by blackmail, as we were talking about. It's made by many things. And so our policy is complicity in genocide. Now, if you ask, what does Israel really want? Whatever they say day to day, it has been Netanyahu's whole political career to oppose a state of Palestine. And Likud, which is his political party, in its founding charter, says explicitly, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Israel will be sovereign. So it's ironic that it came to be said by the U.S. government that the chant from the river to the sea is anti-Semitic. It's actually a line directly out of the Likud political charter, but meaning that Israel will dominate the Palestinian people. And then you rightly ask, well, how could that ever be? There are 8 million Palestinian Arabs, 8 million Jews. Well, the only answer is expel them or kill them, starve them, or dominate them through apartheid. And that's Israel's approach. It varies day by day or month or year by year, but the approach is outright hostility. But it's worse than that because it's so blatant and so vulgar that other governments in the region said, no, this is outrageous. We support the Palestinian cause. And Iran supported Hezbollah and Hamas to some extent. And Israel's approach is not, well, maybe we should compromise, maybe we should have two states and so forth. Their approach is, well, we have to go to war with any government that supports the Palestinian cause. And since Israel is a small country, they look to the United States. Hey, you go to war for us. Netanyahu's the one that told us go to war with Iraq in 2003. People can go on the internet and find Netanyahu speaking to Congress in the fall of 2002 saying it's going to be a great war. It's going to inspire everybody. It's going to bring peace. It's going to be wonderful. He's a jerk and always has been a jerk. And he got the U.S. into lots of wars. So what's going to happen now? There are more than 180 countries that say a state of Palestine, and many more joining day by day right now. Australia most recently, France and Britain saying that they'll recognize the state of Palestine. This is almost the whole world now. It's just Israel, the United States, and a handful of countries that resist. And most of these countries are tiny. Micronesia, Nauru, Vanuatu. I dare people to point them out on the map. They're tiny. These are little Pacific islands. Some of them by law have to vote with the U.S. And Paraguay and Argentina. Okay, it's about 6 that oppose, but all the rest say two-state solution. if there is going to be peace, all that has to happen is Donald Trump needs to say, okay, we recognize the state of Palestine. Gaza is going to belong to the Palestinians. Uh, Actually, the Arab states all through the region would support a demilitarization and a local governance by the Palestinians. They would back it up financially. They would back up the rebuilding financially. They've said so repeatedly. But the United States, till this moment, says, no, 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 we support Israel. Israel has the right to exist. A right to exist is not the right to exterminate another people.
That is a very good quote there. But things are looking somewhat hopeful in different ways. This is a big story that just came out. Norway, it appears that their wealth fund, the wealth fund of Norway, just
Yep.
divested from 11 Israeli companies. This is a huge story. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of it, but it seems like more people are willing to divest from Israel as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. They divested from 11. There are about 40 others that they still invest in. So when it was announced, people said, okay, not a bad first step, but keep going. So we'll see what happens. But yes, it was a real step a couple days ago.
Yes, indeed. And another, two more things for you,
Yeah.
Professor Sachs. You're at Columbia University. I think under the Biden administration, it seems like to me they were shocked at the rise of the students denouncing this genocide in Gaza. And it almost seemed like they didn't really know how to respond to this at first, at least. And
Yeah.
Columbia has a deep history with this, as so does Harvard, standing up against apartheid South Africa. So this was not the first time. Why do you feel like the press and, in particular, the police more so heavily targeted the protesters at Columbia University? And they targeted them at other universities too, but it seemed like to me the crackdown was so much greater at Columbia University when you compare it to some of the other colleges.
Well, it was very visible protest, but to claim that Columbia University is an anti-Semitic institution is just about the most ridiculous imaginable claim in the world. Oh my God, are you kidding? it's, this is I can't even go there. It's so absurd. But that is the meme because the Israel lobby is pushing this. And Trump is pushing this nonsense. And it's vulgar. It's so totally phony. You don't even know where to start.
And the students were on the right side of history.
The students are protesting a genocide. For God's sake, if you can't protest a genocide, what can you protest?
Exactly. And to that point, you made a bold move in 2024 for the presidential election. You, I think, was the first person to publicly endorse Dr. Jill Stein, which I voted for as well. Did you receive any type of pushback or any type of criticism because you endorsed Jill Stein? And I'm asking because there are a number of people that are telling me even today, they're still getting flack from people for voting for Jill Stein or supporting Jill Stein. And I said to my audience that Jill Stein's campaign was the left campaign. It really was. And if you supported like a lot of those progressive policies, that was over at the Jill Stein campaign. I didn't see that at Kamala's campaign. I think Kamala blew it when she said that she wouldn't do anything different from Biden. I think she blew it when she said she wouldn't withhold weapons from Israel. And somehow, some people believe Trump when he said that he was going to end all of the wars, et cetera. But did you receive any type of pushback for endorsing Jill Stein?
Well, look, I have said that the Democrats and the Republicans, when it comes to foreign policy, what's the difference? One is warmongering, the other is warmongering. So, this is absolutely awful. Every presidency for the last, since at least Clinton, I've said, oh my God, can't they do better than this? I'm an unhappy camper, I have to tell you. It's whenever I hear, oh, if the Democrats can just get back in, I was a Democrat for most of my life, but there's almost no one to talk to in the Democratic Party. You look at who are the real warmongers, it's almost always bipartisan. You have Lindsey Graham, who I regard as the stupidest senator in the U.S. Senate, and Richard Blumenthal. And they're always together, one on the Republican side, one on the Democratic side. And in general, there are very few politicians I like, by the way. I like Ro Khanna in the Congress. I like Rand Paul. He's a libertarian Republican, but he's honest, and he's not warmongering, and he's a nice guy, and he's smart, by the way. But so many of the people that I'm supposed to like, because that was my political party, I gave up on. And I thought Biden was a terrible president, absolutely terrible. And I think Trump is, oh my God, I don't know how. I mean, I'm hoping we're going to survive this, but it's one after the other. They just don't do their job.
Do you think that we'll ever see a third party candidate get further in the race? Do you ever think we'll see a third party candidate win the White House, or an independent?
It's so hard because of the nitty gritty rules. In the end, I believe Jill did not get on the ballot in New York. She didn't get the signatures. You get lawsuits everywhere. It's it's an oligarchy of these two parties to prevent new voices. But you can never say never in politics, and we need a breakthrough. And American history shows at times a new party rising, and it's so compelling that you get mass support. And the problem in the U.S. has been that mass support has been equated with big money backing. But then you're already sold out by the time you do that. I advised Bernie Sanders in 2016. You could see how the establishment basically killed his campaign, even though he was by far the enthusiastic, the one enthusiastically backed by the voters. So it's very hard, but we need it. I think we need a peace party, actually. We need a party that is based on peace, because peace is not the domestic agenda, but there is no domestic agenda if we're a war economy and a military-industrial complex and a CIA-led foreign policy. Then we don't get anywhere. And we need to recover even our constitutional government from the military-industrial complex. So I think the right approach is a peace party.
Professor Jeffrey Sachs, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Great to be with you. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.